Good evening, everyone. Let us open the meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. My name is Mark, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is April 5th of 2003. Welcome to the 7 p.m. Thursday night Treasure Map meeting of the Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a closed meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, but spouses are welcome to attend this meeting with the alcoholic. We'd like to extend a special welcome to any visitors who are here from out of town. Please stand and introduce yourself. Do we have any visitors here tonight? Welcome. Also, is there anyone here who is visiting the Treasure Map meeting for the first time? Please stand and be recognized.
Marshall, an alcoholic.
Hey, Marshall. Hey, Oliver. Hey, Joe. Hi, Mike. Yeah. All right, welcome everyone. And finally, we would like to welcome anyone who is at their first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're very happy that you're here tonight. You're welcome here. Is there anybody attending their first meeting? All right. Once again, thanks for being here with us this evening. The Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous celebrates our sobriety birthdays on the last Thursday of each month. Treasure Map home group members celebrate each month of sobriety for the first 12 months and then each consecutive year thereafter. If you'd like to make this meeting your home group, please see Randy in the back for details. And just a quick reminder, next week will be birthday night, so if you're celebrating a birthday in the month of March, let us know. The Treasure Map group of Alcoholics Anonymous is committed to bringing a message of hope to those who suffer from alcoholism. We believe this message is contained within the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and our personal experiences. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Our meeting tonight will be a speaker meeting focusing on step 4, and our 10-minute speaker is going to be Ryan, and then our main speaker is Judith from Bismarck. And now I'd like to please welcome Ralph to read how it works.
Thank you. My name is Ralph. I'm an alcoholic. How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way that we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided if you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. But some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol. cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure, injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I cannot go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought. Thank you.
Now please welcome Mike to read the 12 traditions as we pass the baskets. Thank you in advance for your generosity and support. Tradition 7 states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. Twyla, I'm sorry.
Just flat out.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Twyla and I'm an alcoholic. The 12 traditions. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Hence, the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And 12, anonymity is a spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
All right, now it is my pleasure to introduce our 10-minute speaker, Jason.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jason W., and I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is February 19th, 2006. As you heard him say originally, this 10-minute speaker was supposed to be Ryan, and I found out about 10 minutes ago when Michael pulled me in the back and said, I need to talk to you, asked if I would speak for about 10 minutes. So here I am. Turned around and I told Judith, yeah, I'm now the 10-minute speaker. She said, you want to do that? And I said, I learned early to not tell Michael no. Michael's been sponsor since I was about 6 months sober. I haven't been the greatest sponsee in the last few years in contact with him, but definitely grateful. It's people like him and like Mark L., who was here a couple weeks ago and spoke to us, that have took the time when this extremely arrogant 27-year-old walked into Southside and wanted to learn how to drink. So, I can sit up here and tell you like all those drinking stories, but I used to drink, I drank, and I got drunk. It's really all there was to that. My story is going to be different than some of yours as far as when I was drinking, and it's going to be the same as some of yours. So tonight's about step 4, which is, it's interesting because I was just talking to a guy that I'm sponsoring, and he's stuck on 3. He doesn't think 4 is necessary. We've been working together now for a year, and he's on his 6th or 7th 24-hour chip. We never get past 3. And it's interesting because growing up for me, I was a public school kid here in Sioux Falls. Went to Axtell, Hawthorne, Axtell. If you know anything about those schools, they're 2 of the tougher schools for those age levels. And then I knew that I needed to separate from some people, and I paid for myself to go to O'Gorman. And I spent 4 years faking being a Catholic. And I say that because it was cheaper for me to go. My mom was Catholic. And I knew that if you were there, it was a lot easier if you were one. So I went through all those steps and did all those things that you were supposed to do as a high school kid in the Catholic faith. Used to spend a lot of time arguing with the priests. Father Schockert was his name, about confession. Told him that, this is ridiculous. You tell me to read this Bible thing, and the Bible tells me that all I have to do in my heart is ask for forgiveness, but you're telling me I got to go sit in that little cubicle thing, which I'm claustrophobic, tell you my sins, and then you're going to get them forgiven for me. And we would argue. And I remember him very vividly telling me that one of the biggest parts of the confession was searching myself and being able to accept and admit those things that I was asking for forgiveness for. And I got so stuck because I like to kind of fight the system a little bit. So I get stuck on the fact that, you're still telling me that I can just ask for forgiveness and get it, but you're still telling me I need to come talk to you and tell you all that stuff when I could just think it and be good. And then I got to Southside when I walked in, and it was a birthday meeting, and there were these people standing up there laughing, talking about this step 4 and this fearless and moral inventory. And I was like, you guys are absolutely psychotic. How is that going to help me drink? And my first, 4th, and 5th step was a different experience. It was my second one that when I sat down and finally did my first fearless and moral inventory, that I think my entire life changed. It was the first time in my life that I can honestly say that I felt connected to God. Prior to that, I had faked my connection to God. I'd faked my way through everything. I was in middle school, I was president of student council. I was the popular kid. I was the jock. I was in high school. I played every sport there was. I went to college on a full ride football scholarship. Faked my way through all of that. I was never a genuine human through most of that time of my life. So the first time I sat down and actually started working these steps and did a step forward, it absolutely changed me. And I haven't been the same since. I've strayed away from the steps. We all have. None of us are perfect. But the knowledge that I gained from actually doing it that first time brings me back. I know where my solution's at. My solution's in this book and with my relationship with God. I've watched some amazing people in this program walk this and live this thing daily. And none of them are perfect. And I always come back to this. When I'm struggling in my life, I got to do a moral inventory. Because it's when I get away from it and I forget about it that things start going crazy. If you on page 64, it talks about resentment as the number one offender. And it destroys more alcoholics than anything else. I resented that line the first time I read it. I did. I am so good at resenting things and people and situations and institutions and opinions. And when I do my 4 steps, it always goes back to that resentment. It is my number one offender. Absolutely destroys me. Says from it stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. Never thought I was spiritually sick. I was really good at making you think. I made people think that I was just this really spiritual high school kid, and I was not. I was the farthest from that. Anybody that truly knew me knew that it was just a big facade. I was spiritually sick human. I still am a spiritually sick human. We're all sinners. It's the way it is. But luckily, this program, many, many faces that I see out there out in the crowd right now, have given me the set of tools, the spiritual set of tools. And for me, it starts with 4 is huge for me. I can go away from it just like that. And when I do, I am screwed. I was like, I don't know how else to put that. I knew I was faking my way through life, but I never wanted to admit to a single person what my flaws were. You were never going to see my flaws. And it is something that I still struggle with. I don't want to let people see me struggle. I put myself in this, people look up to me and they can't see that I'm hurting. And then I'm still spiritually sick. And then I start reading and I go, yep, I know what I got to do. I don't even know. I could just on and on and on about step 4. We think about, I can still take you to the room the first time Michael and I read through this together. And I got notes all over my book. I spend more time reading my margins than I do sometimes the others, because I had gone through this book with somebody prior. And when you hear somebody they look at that chair and they say it's black. And I could say, yeah, no. And Michael would say, that chair is black. And I go, son of a, look at that thing, it's black. And so when we would go through this, I just couldn't write stuff down fast enough, because he took words that helped me understand this step. Understand what it meant to be fearless, to do a fearless and moral inventory. And that's hard for me, the fearless part. I'm full of fear, full of it. It is so hard to give it up. It sucks, it's painful. You'd think I'd just be like, hey, here, have it. It doesn't work like that for me. But when I work these steps, I'm able to do that. It's like I feel like I get taller every time. And when I feel myself shrinking, I know what I got to do. And I can do it on a daily basis when we get to 10. It's an amazing thing. I celebrated, I got 12 years last month, and I just got the 12-year chip. He just gave it to me because they had just had the 24 hours at that time. I mean, there was a time, and I was talking to somebody before the meeting. There was a time that I didn't think I was going to graduate high school. There was a time I didn't think I was going to make it to age 30. Figured I'd die drunk. There was a time that I didn't think that I was going to graduate high school. I didn't think I was going to get a college degree. And in May, I'm going to end up with my 3rd higher ed degree. And I have a 12-year chip. And it's not because of me, because of this. And it's because of my higher power. And for those that have been here before and continue to be here for me. And Step 4 is huge for that. And with that, I'm grateful. Thanks for letting me be here.
All right, thanks, Jason. We're gonna have a short break here. Let's come back at 7:35, and then we'll have Judith. And just a few housekeeping notes. Bathrooms are back there, and if you smoke,
My name is Michael, and I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to the treasure map meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a great pleasure for me to have the honor of introducing our speaker tonight. Judith and I met a number of years ago, and we just instantly became friends. And it's just been a tremendous grace for me to watch her evolve, not only as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, but more importantly, as a person. Her leadership in Alcoholics Anonymous is, it's beyond the call of duty. She is always willing to put her hand out to help someone. She's a great example of this program. And by that, I mean this. She's a great example of how powerful the steps are when applied to your life to meet a God who can change your heart. And with all the sincerity in my heart, I love this woman, and I am proud to call her my friend. Judith, would you come up and talk? Thank you.
Gotta move some of this. Sorry. Good evening. My name is Judith Roberts, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Judith. Thank you for your kind words and the kind invitation. I was absolutely thrilled to come down here, and I actually asked one lady to come with me, and she jumped at it. And I said, oh, I was kind of flattered. Oh, you're going to change your entire schedule at the last minute to come with me, How nice. I was thinking this. I said, oh, okay. And she goes, well, I do want to come and hear you speak, but I want to see Michael. So it was like total ego deflation right there. I know where I'm at. But thank you for those kind words, but it really is our pleasure. We almost feel like this is our second home. We've done a lot. It's really kind of almost like a foreign exchange student program going on between Bismarck and Sioux Falls. We have Michael and other people up there all the time, and we come down and participate in your workshops a lot, and anytime anything's going on, we want to be here. Yeah, we feel really at home, and so thank you for having us. What Michael said was very kind. But I do want to follow up on that, and that is like my sponsor says often, it isn't me. I can take absolutely no credit for it whatsoever. Anything that anyone sees in me that is productive, meaningful, positive, anything like that is, as Michael said, a direct result of applying these steps, because I did not look like this when I walked in. I did not act like I act like now. When I walked in, I didn't think like I thought. I mean, my world was turned upside down, and up was down and black was white, and I didn't even, basically all I did was cooperate with the process. And I did it so wrong. And yet it still worked. That is what's so awesome, that I can do it so flawed. I say I'm flawsome, a little bit awesome and flawed, yeah. But I work this program flawsomely. But really flawed. And yet, for the first time in my life, I was involved in something that there was perfection wasn't required, and my fumbling attempts to do what I was directed to do produced amazing results. Amazing results. That is when I started working the steps, and I'm going to say a little bit about that, because I've been taught that I need to qualify, because why would you even want to listen to me if I'm not like you? And so I need to spend a little time qualifying that I probably am like you, as far as, well, if you're like me, an alcoholic of my variety, you drank like I drank, or didn't, or felt, anyway, we're going to go through that. Even though the details are different, our alcoholism, our disease is the same. So we try and identify with that. Before I forget, I do want to say that I have a sponsor, very important. And I'll tell you a little bit about why that's so important to me. I have a home group. I'm very active in the home group. My home group is Tuesday nights at 7:30. It's called Shoulder to Shoulder, and it's a speaker meeting. So if you come and visit us, let me know, and we'll probably put you to work. We love hearing from visitors because we get to hear each other all the time. It's kind of like, oh, man. So please let me know. I also have the privilege of sponsoring women, and it's the highlight of my life now, or one of the highlights, because I never, ever, ever experienced a meaningful or deep connection with another woman before. The common story, you've all heard it. We come in, we hate men. We love men, hate women, right? We don't want to hang out with the women. And now today, oh my gosh, it's true what the book says. Working with women, working with the newcomer is the bright spot of my life. And I love that. So just wanted to get that out of the way. I am what I consider an active member, not an observer of AA. And it's not because I'm a good person. It's not because I even wanted to. It's because my life depended on it. I didn't come in here skipping, and I certainly didn't like anyone when I came in. And it was, these steps are the only thing that saved my life. Now, real quickly, real quickly, grew up in Australia. Okay, my dad's Australian, my mom's American. I grew up in Australia. I was in a very controlled environment. I was shipped away to boarding school when I was 13, very highly religious environment. So I did not have, nor was I around alcohol ever. I didn't know anyone that drank. I didn't know any alcoholics. My parents to this day had never had a drink. And I myself never had a drop of alcohol until I was 28 years old. That probably is the only thing different about, because the women I work with, it's 11, 12, 13, right? And it's like, well, how can you understand? But this is the thing. When I was 28, I took that first drink. And it was an innocent drink. And from that moment, my life changed. And I can go into the whole thing and how it progressed, but I can tell you I never drank normally. Because from that first drink, it was like, I didn't like the taste. It was vodka, my first drink, vodka and orange juice. I felt like we had just ruined a perfectly good glass of orange juice. But I kept drinking it. And I never drank for the taste. I became later in the years, I would say that I liked it. I acquired a taste for it, absolutely, but not anything I had for the first time. But I loved the effect. And what was the effect? It changed my reality, and it changed how I saw reality. It just changed my perspective. And that's what I was looking for. I went through the progression of alcoholism. I didn't know I had alcoholism. Within a year, I was kicked out of the church, excommunicated, divorced. I was just on my own and off and running. And I drank not daily at first, just on weekends, controlling it. But when I would ingest alcohol, I had no off switch. And I only meant to have one. And I think my motto for however long, I started drinking at 28 and I got sober at 44. Oh, I should tell you my sobriety date. That's important. January the 19th, 2009. So I drank from 28 to 44, and I have 9 years of sobriety now. I just turned 53. So, but I drank on the weekends, and then it progressed and progressed, and it progressed very quickly. And for about the last 6 years, for sure, of my drinking, I drank every day. At night, never in the mornings, except on Saturdays and Sundays, but that doesn't count. I'm relaxing. That's not morning drinking. But I would, and I never got technically fired, and I would only start drinking at 5:30. But when 5:30 came, I'm drinking. And I swear to myself, I'm only going to have one. And then I have one, and then for some reason, I just change my mind. And I'm like, oh, those bills don't need to be paid. That laundry doesn't need to be done. I don't need to go and do this. I don't need, and I change my mind, okay? So, that's how I drink. I didn't understand the obsession, the second part. So I have that physical thing, I put it in me and it keeps going. I didn't understand the physical part of it. I mean, the mental obsession part of it, until I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I never stopped, right? And I didn't understand that the obsession was working on me all the time. That even though every morning I swore I wasn't going to do it again, by 4:30, I'm thinking, whew, I've had a bad day. One's not going to hurt. I didn't understand that was the obsession. I didn't understand I was an alcoholic. I didn't understand how difficult it was going to be for me when I stopped drinking, because I had never stopped for the last 6 years of my drinking. Every night I would drink until 1 a.m., pass out, get up, do the whole thing again. So it wasn't until I came into AA, I got sober. My last drink was January 19th, 18th, 2009, and I came in to my first AA meeting intoxicated, and no one turned me away, just putting that out there. They welcomed me, they introduced themselves to me, and they sent me away with a big book. That was my first introduction to the big book. I took it home. The next day, I stayed in bed for the entire day because I wanted to earn that 24-hour chip that they gave me. And I knew if I got out of bed, I wouldn't earn it. And I thought, if I can just earn this 24-hour chip, it'll prove I'm not an alcoholic, because I don't know what an alcoholic is. I have no concept. I read the first 164 pages that day. I finish it, I slam it shut, and I whip it across the room against the wall. Just throw it. I said, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. So there begins my introduction of AA. Angry, very hostile, very bitter, victim, self-pity, very afraid, and not knowing any of this, and not knowing I'm an alcoholic. In fact, I would never even introduce myself as an alcoholic, because I am not an alcoholic. I don't live under a bridge. I haven't been fired. I haven't got a DUI. I haven't got all these things. All this stuff, I'm not an alcoholic. You guys just sort of seemed happy. And for some reason, I felt fine for an hour a day when I was with you, except when I was sort of pissed off at you, you know? So I was just very confused. But after I read that book, I came in here and I'm like, there's too much God in this thing. And you're not fooling me with the higher power because I know what you're trying to do. I was raised in a very, very knowledgeable, my dad has a doctorate of theology. I was raised from the time I can remember in religion. I know more about God than all of you. Been there, done that, doesn't work. You're all going to wise up. And, you know, I'm going to ruin your club too, you know. It's just, this is just like, I'm going to take over AA and teach y'all something. I don't know. But the funny thing is that I kept coming back. I did not miss a single meeting, 8 p.m. I got sober in South Dakota, actually Pierre, South Dakota. It was interesting. God bless them. They did reach out their hand and they did put a big book in mine. And what I experienced for the next 11 and a half months was I attended a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous every single night at 8 p.m. And I thought that was AA. I absolutely love your meeting, even though I don't get to attend. I get to listen to it on, I get to access you guys thanks to the technology, but it's the treasure map. Love that. Because what I was doing was I was sitting in this chair and I was observing and I thought that was AA. I'm sure someone told me better, differently, but I wasn't prepared. I don't know why I didn't hear it. I had no clue that the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is in here. 11 and a half months after which, at that time, I was had a loaded pistol and I was going to take my life. I was absolutely insane with untreated alcoholism, sitting in a meeting of AA every day. What is wrong? This program doesn't work. I had no clue. I hadn't done the program at all. I watched you all. My friend says, sitting in a chicken coop don't make you a chicken. And I was sitting there expecting to be a chicken, right? And I was mad at all you guys for being so happy. So what happened, a series of events, I was invited to, I was sober, 11 and a half months sober, and my life was crumbling around me. And I didn't know what was wrong. And I was like, if this is it, I don't know. I don't want it. I want out, and I'm going to take myself out. But through a series of events, when I got to that point, my higher power was ready. And I didn't enjoy it at all, but plucked me up from Pierre and plopped me in Rapid City. Long story, don't have time for it, but it saved my life. The thing that I thought was the worst thing to ever happen to me saved my life, because it got me somewhere where I could finally find a sponsor and I would finally find out what the program of AA was about. And when I got there, we got to work. I didn't have a choice. I was like, pretty much, who got the short straw? This lady is dying. There wasn't many women for sponsorship, so it's like the guys stood around and like, who's going to get the short straw? Someone got it. I have a male sponsor and saved my life. Harley mechanic, kicked my butt through the steps and saved my life. So I know you've done steps 1, 2, and 3. I went through my with my sponsor. Step 3, huge problem, because I am rejecting this whole higher power God thing. And my sponsor wanted me to get down on my knees every morning and say the 3rd step prayer. And I said, you know how I feel about God. You know this. You want me to still do this? What, you want me to be a hypocrite? And my sponsor says, I've seen the long list of your character defects, and hypocrite is way down here. I think we'll be fine. So do it anyway. And it's like this theme through the whole thing of my sponsorship. I don't care. And he was loving and he was sweet and he was never cruel. He was firm. And I needed firm. I needed firm. I was dying. And he cared more about saving my life than making me happy or being my friend. And that was so important. And he hurt my feelings sometimes. But I started doing the 3rd step prayer. And I had to do it every morning and keep doing it. And even though I thought I didn't mean it, I don't know, following his directions that are based in the book, my life started to get better. I could start to breathe, and I didn't want to take my life. Slowly but surely, but now we're coming on the 4th step. And you sitting in a meeting, I've been sitting in a meeting for 11 and a half months, a few months in Rapid, and you all have been to these meetings. You hear the almost, oh, she's working on her 4th step. I mean, it's like dread, whisper, doom, gloom, watch out, here comes the 4th step. I don't know, but that's the impression I got, is that this is big, right? And I'm starting to get scared. And there's a couple other things I want to tell you about that was very dangerous for me and what I heard. I'm gonna wait on that. I'm coming to it though. So we met, and we would meet weekly and work. And I'm an educated person. I fancy myself as being somewhat intelligent, but I could not, for the life of me, I have advanced degrees. I couldn't get this book. I didn't know. I thought it was so poorly written and they needed me to rewrite it. Basically, I'm not kidding you. I was like, yeah, they need some help here, because I just didn't like the way I just didn't know how to read it. Now I think that it's like the most brilliant thing ever. And I've learned, you know, what it's saying to me, and that how to identify and how to actively read it, you know. So we got to step 4. I'm very worried about step 4. And I am so difficult, and I'm just a brat, okay? At that point, I am just a brat. And he's explaining this big process to me. It seems like a lot of work. I'm naturally not fond of work. And he's explaining, and he's like, okay, we're going to get it simple for you, okay? We're going to really bring it down here, step by step by step. So he started talking about a moral, honest inventory and things like that. And he starts talking about fact-finding, fact-facing process to discover the truth. And we got to get rid of this stuff that's caused our failure and all this stuff. And I was like, well, hang on. You know, when are we going to talk about all the good things I've been doing and all the nice things that we're going to be doing? You know, what about that? You know, my self-esteem is so low. And he says, look at it this way. This is what we're going to do. Imagine you're a grocery store, all right? And you got these shelves, and on these shelves are all these canned goods, okay? This is all we're going to be doing. No big deal. And you got these canned corn. Everyone loves corn, right? And then over here you've got the peas, and you got the baked beans, and you got all this stuff. And then over here there's this large section of lima beans. No one likes lima beans. Everybody hates lima beans. They're old, they're outdated, there's some rusty, they're dented, they're everything. And you know what? They're just sitting there. Meanwhile, you're losing money because everyone loves corn, you know. And so we need more space for corn. Isn't corn positive? I hate lima beans. I'm agreeing with them at this point, right? And we need to make more space, because this is just old, damaged, no one's buying it, no one wants it, and it's just blocking you from making, you know, if we're talking business, from a profit. What we're going to do is we're not going to sit here and talk about how awesome corn is. We're going to leave that alone. That's cool. We're just going to leave that alone. That's working. What we're going to do is get rid of all those lima beans. That's what we're doing. Okay, so no, we're not going to sit around and talk about all the wonderful things you're doing. We don't have time for that. You're dying. We're going to deal with what's been blocking you your entire life. Okay, so we had to make that clear. The book says on page 64 that we're going to search out the flaws in our makeup, which has caused our failure. That sounded like an okay idea to me. My sponsor kept saying, how free do you want to be? How free? Every time I would put the brakes on, every time I would start to argue, every time I would balk, how free do you want to be? And that one question brought me up short every time because I wanted freedom. I was desperate for freedom. I was desperate for those voices to go away. I was desperate for some serenity. I didn't even know the concept. I was desperate not to, my life just, I wanted to die. I wanted to have a light heart again. I felt like everything in me was so dead and decayed. And I'm not really being overly dramatic. That's exactly how I felt. I don't remember who said it, but it was like I had a cancer of the soul and it had just eaten away. And so when I was faced with that question, how free do you want to be? I had no answer. I just had to say, okay, fine. What's next? So we kept going and we talked about, he explained something to me. And I'm going to use Star Wars. Anyone Star Wars fans? I'm going to use this. I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't understand these things. I was so asleep. I was so unaware. I was walking through my entire life sleepwalking when I was drunk or passed out or blacked out. But when I wasn't, I was still sleepwalking. I was spiritually bankrupt. And I had no clue. And so I'm just confused. I'm just baffled about this. And so when they start talking about, sorry, Ryan had to run out and get me these because at 53, my eyesight's going. I don't know what the deal is, and I can't see anything anymore. So, what baffled me was on page 64, my sponsor read, being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us. We considered its common manifestations. And I had read that on the other page, going, in step 3, selfishness and self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. So they're listing 4 things: fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity, but they're saying there's 100 forms of them, 100 forms. So then they refer to it again on 64, that we're convinced that self is manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. I'm not understanding this concept. It's not me, it's you. I cannot get beyond the fact. And he's trying to explain it to me in different ways. And it's like, why are they just picking resentment and fear and sex? I'm not getting it. Why those 3? And it's like, okay, just picture this. Star Wars. Death Star. Okay. The mothership. Whatever. That's self. That's the mothership. And then, when someone comes, someone comes to attack it, all of a sudden, and maybe I'm getting Star Wars and Star Trek mixed up, I'm not sure, but roll with me, okay? But when someone comes to attack the mothership, self, you see all these tiny little ships, hundreds, peeling off, like all these things, and then but peeling off hundreds of different things, right? And he said, just imagine that little fancy ship over there. Yeah, Darth Vader's in that one. We're calling that one resentment because that seems to cause the most trouble. Darth Vader's coming after you type of thing, right? I don't know if this makes any sense to you, but apparently this is how I needed it explained to me. And so we're going to deal with Darth Vader first, okay? That's what we're going to do. Self is that big one. And then 100 forms of other things. And they could have listed, I personally think, if I was writing this book, I would have added self-pity. Because for me, self-pity is Darth Vader's first lieutenant, right? It just is there. But it's not. But these, and they're so wise. What are the 3 things that trip us up over and over and over and over and over, and we see over and over and over? Resentment, fear, sex. So those are the threes we're going to do it. But that doesn't mean there's not hundreds of these little things driven by 100 forms of fear, 100 forms of self-delusion, 100 forms of self-seeking. Just imagine all these little, whatever they're little called, those little ships peeling off of self, right? And we're going to start dealing with those. I hope that didn't confuse you, but we're dealing with Darth Vader, resentment, okay, right now. All right, so we're going to deal with that. Now, again, he starts explaining to me how to do the 4-step, and my eyes are just glazing over. I was so unaware. I was so out of touch with who I am, with my feelings. I knew I didn't like those things, feelings. Anytime I felt one, I would drink, right? So I'm so baffled and out of touch that he's talking to me, and it's too much. I'm not getting it. And like I said, I'm pretty highly educated and I think intelligent, but I could not get it. So we took it in chunks. And I, quite frankly, I sponsor like I've been sponsored. Okay? And it works so well for me. It's what I do. I'm not going to change something that works. I'm not going to jeopardize someone by injecting my own good ideas in. And you know, people say, "Oh, my best thinking got me to AA." That's not true for me. My best thinking got me drunk and almost dead. My best thinking would never have gotten me to AA. That wasn't even my thinking. I didn't even know what you guys were. I thought you were American Airlines meeting. I don't know what you were doing in here, but I had no concept, right? My best thinking, you know, I'm so sick. I'm so sick that I had to be taking it slow. And I found that it's very effective. Now, if I say something that goes against what your sponsor says, ignore me. They're right, okay? But I'm just giving you my experience, how I was taken through the 4-step. So my sponsor says, and I know that you've already gone through the 4-step and you've torn it apart, so I'm not going to get into the dynamics. I know that it has been done stellar, and we're not going to go there, so I'm just going to show you how I did it. So the first one is resentments, and I'm like, okay, there's a few people I hate. But other than my dad, God, 2 ex-husbands, the guy that sexually molested me in boarding school, I don't let anyone get close enough to me to hurt me. And so I'm not going to, you know. So that's about it. And he's like, okay, we're going to make this really simple. Resentment. I'm going to help you out with a couple clues. When you're sitting there and someone's name comes to mind, you know, and that it's almost like some of you are way too young to remember this, but you ever seen a slide projector and the carousel, right? The carousel where you put all the slides in and you click it and it goes around, click, it goes around, right? If you don't know what it is, talk to me later. But it's this carousel thing with slides. And it's like the carousel, and I'm seeing these pictures of these people. And when a name or a face comes by, do my lights dim when I think about that person? Do I have you know, it may not be anger. I might not be able to identify it as resentment, but it may be, if I saw him in the mall, I'd duck behind a pillar or a rack of clothes. Or it may be, I think I'm way superior than them, or I think I'm so less than, because I'm either way up here above all you guys or I'm scum, right? You know, who do I feel that way about? Who am I afraid of? And yes, we could do a fear inventory later, but he got me to encourage, because I'm afraid of some people. And so I'm angry. And I will undermine them, and I'll try and sabotage them at work, and I'll try, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on that I don't know. So anytime he said, when I think of a name, and I have this emotional reaction, this, oh, or I think of them and my mood or my lights, just dim. Okay. He said, we'll sort it out. We'll sort it out later. Just write it down. And he said to write it down on one side of the paper, going down, to pray, to pause first. And he taught me this prayer, and it's called the set aside prayer. And I can share it with you if you're not aware of it. And say the set aside prayer. And basically it says, set aside everything I think I know, and go into with it with an open mind. And then just write names down. Don't stop, don't think, don't analyze, just keep going. So I'm writing these names down. The first 5 were very easy. And then it started, and you know what? It kind of rolled. And I'm like, oh, and he said, because he's keeping it simple and doing chunks, he said, as soon as you run out of names, you call me. That was the only instruction I had. All I knew that I have sort of read ahead, but I really I didn't want to know. And it's like, oh, okay, he told me to write a list of names. That's what I'm going to do. And then I was supposed to call him. Okay. So I'm writing out the names, and it was amazing to me because more and more names came out. She's an idiot. He's a jerk, and this is pretty good. This isn't bad. I hate lima beans. Boom, but it's like nothing was, it's like, okay, I'm making a list of names. You know what? I didn't realize I'd been making a list of those names my entire life. This was nothing new to me, and I didn't realize it. I've been doing this forever. I have a hit list in my mind a mile long, right? And you better watch out. I'm subtle about it, but you're on my list, right? So I get done with the names. I'm like, okay, that's not so bad. I don't know why everybody's fussing in the meetings all the time. Ooh, the 4th step, and I'm going in there and I'm like, yeah, I'm on my 4th step. No big deal. And so then I called him. I said, I'm done with my column. I'm done with my list. And he says, okay, now is fun. 2nd column, write down what happened. What'd they do? And he didn't use the, it says that in dealing with our resentments, we set them on paper. We listed the people, institutions, and principles with whom we are angry. And then the 2nd column, we asked ourselves why we were angry. I was like, you're kidding. I've been waiting my whole life for this. Someone's going to listen to all that they did to me. And it was so fun. I just got to puke it out on paper. They did this, they did that, they did that. And I'm telling you, I wasn't one of those people that are like, oh, I don't want to look at that because, no. I was so unaware that I hadn't a clue what was coming next. And you better believe it. I had heard people in meetings say, I need to look at my part. I need to look at my part. And I'm thinking, I am absolutely 100% sure, and I cannot see that I have any part. I never asked for a father like I had. I'm the kid. He's the dad. There's no part in that. I'll write down what he did. You better believe it, and I'll be happy to. Sexually molested. Oh, what's my part? You really want to go there? You want to dance with that one? Oh, I was ready. It said what was the cause? I had been reviewing this cause for my entire life, and it was no problem. My sponsor said keep in close contact with him during this time. And actually, our home group, he said, which is my home group. I didn't get to pick my home group. My home group was his home group, and it's the Early Risers in Rapid City. Highly recommend it, 6:45 a.m. I was there every morning, and if I came in a minute late, he's looking at me. And I got taught very early about meeting etiquette. Okay. I had to be there on time. So I saw him every day anyway. And he kept close tabs on me because he knew that writing we asked ourselves why we were angry. it was going to stir up even more of that anger, which is what I've been doing my whole life. Been doing it. But it was really going to start bringing up that anger. And I drink at people when I'm mad. I drink at people. So he was very close to me during this time, watching me, saw me every day, in contact with me. Because it does. I'm full to the brim of self-righteous anger. And it's just so funny what the book says. On page 66, the first full sentence, it says, to conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. I had been doing it my whole life, but that was as far as I ever got. And I stayed angry. I had been in counseling. I had been sexually molested when I was in boarding school. I had been through 2 marriages that I trashed, but you better believe the story I was telling for years was I am the innocent victim, right? It was me and my alcoholism and my self-centeredness. I trashed 2 very good men, amazing men. But you better believe that that is not what I'm telling and not what I'm showing up, right? That's how out of touch I am. But to conclude that everybody else was wrong was exactly how I lived my entire life. My entire life. So this was nothing other than I got more self-righteous anger. And it says in the book that justifiable anger is a dubious luxury, or someone help me out, something like that. Right, it's a dubious luxury of normal man, but I think it's self-righteous anger, is that right? Anyway, dangerous for me, regardless, okay? So I'm full of this, and then comes the 3rd column. Oh, once I'm finished with that, I'm supposed to call. So he's doing 1 column, clear-cut instructions, just like the book. I wasn't allowed to write my life story. I had to do bullet points, just like the book. He wasn't so strict as to count out the words and say I couldn't use as many, any more than that. But he says bullet points. There's no story. Boom. My dad was abusive. Boom. Never was enough for my dad. Boom. Sexually assaulted. Didn't need to know how many times, No, it's just whatever. We'll talk about it later, right? So then the 3rd column was, what did it affect? And it gave some things. And I was guessing. I don't even know. Like I said, I'm so out of touch. It says self-esteem, security, ambition, personal or sex relations have been interfered with. Well, you see, I'm going through my life that I'll never let you in to hurt me. I'll never let, you see that I'm hurt. I'm angry at the guy that sexually molested me, but didn't affect anything. Didn't affect anything. Right? So what are you talking about? So I'm just writing self-esteem. That sounds good. Everybody's got low self-esteem. Everything on mine has self-esteem. We got, and call me when it's done. Called them when it's done. Everything's self-esteem. Came to the 4th column that is not shown in the book. And I assume that perhaps it was discussed where we get the 4th column. But top of the next page. Okay. Anyway, it's in there. And, oh yes, okay, I know where it is. All right, I was just a little nervous. Okay, 67. Okay, this is where it got interesting. And this is the whole key. I can't believe I just took a little vacation there. It says on 67, referring to our list again. Okay. Putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? And he said, I want you to do the fourth column with your mistakes. Where had you been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? And I was like, what are you talking about? I had no clue. I wasn't ready for that because I had been sitting in AA meetings for now a year. I remember first 11 and a half months, no steps, no sponsor, no nothing. And all I had been hearing in the rooms, what I picked up, I'm sure there was something else said, was we look for our part. Now, I never bothered to match what people were saying with what it said in the book. And now I realize nowhere in this does it say, look for my part. And I was waiting in the weeds for that because I thought I would just jump out and say, ta-da, you're going to tell me I had a part in being raised from a child with an abusive dad? You're going to tell me I had a part in being a 14 and 15-year-old at boarding school and being sexually molested? You know, like I was referring to before, you really want to go there? Because I'll tear you apart on that one. We have to be very, very, very careful because we do come in here with a lot of things. Thank goodness it doesn't say, look for my part. Because I'm not saying, well, I'll show you. I got this from a friend. When I hear that, this is what I see. If this, with those two that I mentioned. Maybe with, this is a good example with my ex-husbands, okay? This is my perception. You want me to look for my part? This is my part. This is your part. I can't get past, if I'm looking at parts, I cannot get past my victim, what you've done. I can't. All right? And if I'm just looking at my list as well, like some of the things I mentioned, in the event that happened, I had no part. I had no part. So what do you do with that? I thought I was going to stump my sponsor. But my sponsor is very well versed in the book, and he has good sponsorship. And he said, we ain't looking for your part. Because I said, well, what about that part? You know, what about looking for my part? He said, we're not doing that. We're going to put out of our minds the event. And I love how he did it. And I'm going to just go back. It says on page 65, the first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. And for the first time, and I told him, and I wrote things that I had never told people. And he looked at this list and he had tears in his eyes and he said, it is very apparent to me that this world and its people were very wrong. And there's some real pain on here. And I can see what happened. And I know you're hurt. And I want you to know that. And I acknowledge that. But we're going to take the event and we're going to put it over there because you've been to counseling. You've been in therapy for years. And the therapist, and I'm not putting it down, this is what happened to me. They would say, you have every right to be angry. So I was. And my sponsor said, yes, it is apparent that the world and its people were quite wrong. And you can be, you know, you're right. You have every right to be angry. But now what? How free do you want to live like this for the rest of your life? Now what? How free do you want to be? He was very compassionate. And it says to conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us got. And he said, you have been living in that event. You have not lived at home since you were 13. The boarding school, those are only two examples I'm using. The boarding school incident happened 13, 14, 15, 14, 15, up to 16. I'm now 45. And that was as far as I ever got. And I was stuck. And I didn't know it, but it affected everything in my life. Everything. How I treated women, how I viewed women, how I treated men, how I used men. What was power to me, everything was affected. And I don't even have time to go into the fear and the sex. But I want to quickly refer to something that he gave me, because again, I am so closed down, so unaware. I cannot see it. I said, and I want to say, he said we're going to look at from after the event to today. We're going to put aside your first three columns and what happened and what they did. And we're going to start looking at how you've been showing up in life. And we're going to look at mistakes that you may have made. He never said I did make them. But we're going to look and explore your mistakes. And this is going to be your fourth column. You're going to look for these four things. And I was like, I don't understand. I haven't been selfish. I mean, now I look back and I think that's ridiculous, but I think I'm a very good person. After all I do for you, I think I'm very honest, because I'll tell you to your face what I think of you. That's my version of honesty. Self-seeking, no. Do you see, in this is something my sponsor says, get down off the cross, we need the wood. Because I'm like, do you see what I've done for all? I don't seek myself. I'm just give, whatever. And afraid. Well, I ain't afraid of nobody. Right? I couldn't do it. So he found, actually, I believe his sponsor helped him, and this was printed in the Grapevine a long time ago. And it has definitions for those four words. And it cracked it wide open for me. And that's why I want to share it with you, in case you're like me, just a little baffled and confused. Okay? Definitions. And I am watching the time. Selfish. This is the definitions that were printed in the Grapevine. Where was I trying to control by playing God? Right away, I'm going to dismiss that. I don't think I'm God. I don't play God, right? And a sub-definition is of playing God, wanting and or expecting a person to be other than they are. Wanting and or expecting a person to be other than they are. That's playing God. Yeah. Whoa. Selfish. Where was I concerned with only my wants and needs? Where did I refuse to share what I had? That even includes my attention, affection, respect, not just material. I refused to respect my father. I refused to give him love. I refused to look him in the face. I refused to acknowledge his presence. Right? Where did I try to control their thoughts and or actions? That hit me too. That's under selfish. Dishonest. Where did I change or manufacture the facts to deceive others? Change or manufacture? Where did I outright lie, commission, or where did I withhold the truth, omission? I'm very good at that. I'm an attorney. You just don't say everything, right? You didn't ask me the right question. I know what you want to know, but you're not asking it exactly correctly. Okay, so that's omission. I just think that's being smart. Where did I pretend I was someone or something I'm not? My whole life, persona. What mask do you want to see? Who do you want me to be? How can I get you to love me? Pretending to be someone or something I'm not my entire life. I didn't know that's what dishonest meant. I didn't know. Where did I exaggerate in order to impress or persuade others? All the time. Where did I delude myself? This guy's going to make me happy. Ignore all the red flags. This is going to work. I can change him by the sheer power of me. Okay, that's dishonest. Self-seeking. This one's good. What actions did I take to get what I want or to get back at others? Did I withdraw, withhold, bully, manipulate, gossip, belittle, etc.? That's all self-seeking. Who knew? Afraid. Where was I afraid I would not get what I needed? All the time. I was afraid I would not get affection, attention, validation, everything. Where was I afraid I would lose what I had? All the time. Where was I afraid of looking bad or being hurt or rejected? That's my whole life. What are you thinking about me? How am I looking? Where was I afraid I would get something I didn't deserve? Okay. And then the fourth column opened up in a dramatic way. And he actually sat there with me and we did it together. We did it together. I needed that help. I needed him and his guidance to unlock where I was showing up in life and walk me through these very, very painful things of the abuse and the different things that happened to me. And he did it, and he took the time. He walked me through that fourth column. I am out of time, so I can't talk about fear or sex. Sorry about that. But let me just end with, it's so important. I believe that if I did not have a sponsor that was well-versed in the book, who if I didn't have a sponsor that had good sponsorship, didn't know the program of AA as specifically outlined in this book, didn't take the time to really understand how to help me through writing those four columns and understanding it, so that at the end, after I'm doing my fifth step, I can answer two questions that he always asks me. And they're kind of hidden right after the fifth step as you're rolling into the sixth step. But the two questions that he made me write down during my sixth step was, how do I know God better as a result? Because it says we thank God that we know him better. We just skip over that. I don't know. Do I know God better? How do I know God better? And what large chunks of truth did I just swallow about myself? And I can tell you, I felt like I was going to die for about a month after my fifth. But things started to change. And the reason why I felt like I was going to die was because for the first time in my life, I woke up. For the first time in my life, I saw how I was operating. I saw my mistakes. I'd been sleepwalking. So it wasn't a 1,000 pounds lifted off of me. I didn't float out. Everyone has different experiences, have no expectations, but I didn't float out of there. I thought I was dying. My entire world was crumbling because for the very first time in my life, I got to see that my entire life was full of lima beans, and it was ugly. And I woke up. And that's where my journey really, really, really took off. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much. God bless.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. You can come back at works. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Never heard of.
Yeah. She did well.
Yeah.